You may have realized that being healthy feels different than it did in the past now that you're over 50. If you want to maximize your health potential but don't have time to read through overwhelming pages of Google links, this is the show for you. Welcome to Healthy Tips After 50. We love doing the research, finding solutions, talking to health experts, and learning what works and what doesn't. Now, your host. She spent the last 25 years dedicated to feeling her best and is here to share her best findings with you, Susan Rosen.
Hello, this is your host, Susan Rosen, and I am coming to you for the second time because I screwed up in doing the first round on this particular podcast. Well, won't get into that. Anyways, okay, so today we're going to talk about plant milk versus cow's milk and which one is better for you. So, other than if you have an allergy to cow's milk, you have an allergy to soy milk or soy, then needless to say, you shouldn't be drinking that kind of milk, okay? Other than that, we're going to talk about which one or ones might be better for you. There was a question and answer kind of interview in one of my newsletters, I think it's the one that comes out of Harvard. And they were talking to Vasanthi Malik, who's an adjunct assistant professor of nutrition at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. They all have names on them now. Must be nice to have that much money, but we won't go there. So they were talking to him about how to choose the best product. Should you choose cow's milk, or should you choose one of the plant-based milks, soy, almond, cashew, rice, oats, peas? For some reason, they don't include coconut oil in here. Coconut milk, rather. Sorry. Which is actually what I drink. But for whatever reason, I don't know. So they were asking him if people should make the switch. And if you drink cow's milk, his answer is there's really no reason to switch to a plant-based option. That cow's milk is actually a good source of a lot of necessary vitamins and minerals. That a serving of cow's milk contains calcium, vitamin D, vitamin A, along with a whole host of micronutrients and all of these things you need in your diet. I will go off on my usual tangent that you don't need calcium by itself. You need calcium along with the other minerals. So if you're going to do that, make sure that you take some magnesium and some of the other minerals to get it all to kind of balance out. But I'm not a doctor, so that's I have to preface it with that. So he went on to say that there's actually no nutritional requirement that you drink milk or eat dairy products specifically. They used to do that because they used to say that you needed it. Dairy products help to build bones and prevent fractures. But there really isn't very strong evidence at all that drinking a lot of milk or eating dairy products has any real benefit when it comes to reducing fracture risk, quote unquote. So what he says is that if you do want to switch from cow to plant, and then he says, or if you have an allergy or lactose intolerance, that you really can get the same nutrients. Oops, just hit the microphone. You really can get the same nutrients by carefully choosing the right plant-based milk product And you can take supplements if they don't have some of these other vitamins included in them. And then they were asking him if he wanted to switch, which or how should he choose a plant-based milk. His answer to that question of whether you should switch is that the quality of the plant-based milks actually varies when it comes to the nutrients. And that has more, I think, to do with the plants themselves. That some contain virtually the same amount of vitamins and minerals as cow's milk, and others fall far short. Many of the almond milks, for instance, are much lower in protein than cow's milk. And if you want to switch to a plant-based milk, that you really need to read the label and find a product that contains some good amounts of protein, vitamin D, iron, and calcium. Well, we'll leave off calcium. Unless it's natural. I don't want it added. Ideally, he says to aim for a milk that has at least 8 or 9 grams of protein per serving. Also, he thinks that a lot of the plant-based milks, that their big drawback is that they don't taste very good. And I don't know. I happen to like them. I like the unsweetened almond milk. I like the unsweetened coconut milk. I like the unsweetened soy milk. What he's concerned about, and I would agree, is that a lot of these milks, in order to make them more palatable, if you want to call it that, to people, is that they add a lot of sugar to it in order to sweeten them up. Well, why does it have to be sweetened? You're having cereal, probably put some fruit in with it. Why do you need more sugar in there? That's what I've never understood. We only buy the unsweetened ones, and they're fine. But anyways, be sure and look at the labels, because now you should have in the new nutrition facts label that I talked about a couple weeks ago, there should be a line on there. They do have until the end of this year, but most of them have made the change already, where it has the added line for added sugar and calls that out. So if it does have any added sugar, then you probably want to stay away from it, or at least try and minimize it if you can't choke the other part down. But as I said, I like the ones they have, so I'm not the person to look to for sympathy on that one. He also mentions in here about the fact that Americans are being encouraged to eat less than 30 to 45 grams of sugar a day, which is roughly about 12 teaspoons. And boy, that sounds like a whole hell of a lot of sugar. I guess if you're eating a lot of berries or something like that, you might be able to get up there. But certainly don't need it added into anything. So they asked him, were there any other reasons to switch to a plant-based milk alternative? And his answer, which I like and I would agree with, is that if you are concerned with climate change and you want to reduce your personal carbon footprint, then you might want to go the plant-based way, because plants have a much smaller carbon footprint, which makes a lot of sense. One other thing that they also asked him specifically about had to do with soy milk. And was there any reason to avoid it? Because there used to be all this stuff going around about how soy was bad for Breast cancer, it was bad if you had a high risk of breast cancer. It was bad for men having to do with prostate cancer. And what he said in here is that those theories have not been proven in any of the studies that they have done having to do with soy. And so really the only reason for people not to drink or eat soy-based products is if you are allergic to them, and there are of course some people who are. They also asked him as his last question if there were any other health reasons to support making the switch from cow's milk to the plant-based ones. And what he has said is that even though higher dairy, this is quoting, although higher dairy intake has been associated with a lower risk of colon cancer, some studies have linked it with a higher risk of advanced prostate cancer and a higher incidence of ovarian cancer. He said, but the evidence is not very strong. And so until there's more information out there, there really aren't any recommendations that anybody has made to eat more or less of dairy. And that if you do have a high risk for any of these conditions, you may want to talk to your doctor about whether your diet could influence your own chance of developing one of these cancers. But other than that, there really wasn't anything to be concerned about. So I hope you guys all got some good information on that. Don't worry, I didn't break anything. Just taking my sweatshirt off here. It's getting warm in the house. So I would say that you should probably try out, if you're interested in trying some of the plant-based milks, try the unsweetened first. We really like the coconut milk that we get from Costco. It's unsweetened and it's shelf stable, so you don't have to worry about it going bad quickly. With the cold ones, they're fresher, but they don't last nearly as long. So, I mean, you have a big family and you're going to go through a lot of it because most of them are half gallon, then go for it. But if you're more interested in the shelf stable, there's a lot of different kinds. And for sure, you can try one of the unsweetened ones first and see whether you like that or not. It's the only kind that we use. But then again, I'm not big on sugar in anything, so I'm probably not the most reliable person on this, because if something has sugar in it, most of the time I just won't eat it. Don't ask me where I developed that from. I don't know. I had the opposite of it when I was growing up and I was a fat little kid, so maybe that's where I got it from. Okay, enough about plant-based milk and cow's milk. I do have one other thing that I want to tell you about, which I saw, which were the results from the annual study that rates the food on the different airlines. They are rated from 0 to 5, and this one was from last December 2019, and it evaluated 11 domestic airlines. Alaska Airlines and Air Canada actually tied for first place. They got 4 out of 5. Delta and JetBlue were in second place at 2.9. It's quite a drop. Followed by United and American, who were at 2.7, so that's pretty close to the JetBlue one. The worst airline for food, especially for healthy food, was Southwest at 1.7, And just above that was Hawaiian, Spirit, and Allegiant, which are all these are pretty cheap airlines. And they were at 1.9. Frontier was at 2.0. Also by the same company, which is called dietdetective.com, they evaluated the quality of the water on 10 major and 13 regional airlines. They found that it really, really varied really widely across all of the airlines. And many of them had a high or relatively high number of violations per aircraft. And this was on average of the EPA's aircraft drinking water rule. I don't know exactly what the rule is, but so Piedmont, which is a regional airline, Alaska, Allegiant, and Hawaiian, isn't that interesting, had the highest water health scores, while all of the other airlines had scores below 3.0 on a scale of 1 to 5 again, that showed that that was possibly unsafe water that they had. And what dietdetective.com came out saying was that the bottom line advice for extra safety is that you should drink water only from sealed bottles on board and not to drink the coffee or tea served. So that's something new. We would never drink their water on any of the airlines, but we have drunk their coffee. And that was thinking that, well, they had to get it pretty hot in order to make the coffee, and that maybe that would kill a lot of the stuff. But it sounds like that is still not a good idea. So we will stay away from that from now on. Just thought you all might be interested. Okay, so I will repeat that I am not a doctor. This is not a show where I'm giving any sort of actual medical advice. And if you have any issues with allergies or any other medical issues, please go to see your own doctor and get their advice so that you can evaluate what you need to do to get yourself better. Okay, I am still futzing around with my autoresponder and trying to clean up my list, which is why no one has seen any emails from me last week. But I will try and get at least some of that taken care of enough where I can do an e-blast during the week to let you guys all know about this podcast getting published, which will be tomorrow, Monday, March 2nd. I can't believe it's March already, but I'm so excited because it's March and I get to be on Medicare. I am so excited. Okay, enough about me. That is going to be about it. I have some interesting interviews again coming up, and I look forward to being able to get those to you. Always am interested if anyone is particularly interested in one or two subjects for me to look at. Otherwise, I'm just going along on my merry way and finding things that I find interesting and that I think are important, especially when some common wisdom, quote unquote, gets upended with some actual data, that I like to be sure and share that kind of information with all of you. So that's about it for this week. I'll look forward to talking to you all next week.
This has been Healthy Tips After 50 with Susan Rosen. To stay on the cutting edge of the most effective health strategies, subscribe to this podcast and let us know what you thought of the show with a comment or like on iTunes. Visit healthytipsafter50.com for this episode's show notes, more resources, and free offers.